welcome to Off-Ball Banter. I'm your host, Elliot Miller, and we've got a full table around here today, so I'm going to let everybody kind of introduce themselves, starting with my left.
All right, I'm Dave Schufelt. I'm the owner of Kalamazoo FC. I've owned it for this is our second season, the fifth season for the club, and looking forward to it.
Yep. And I'm your co-host here, Cruz Alaman, local supporter of KZFC. Grew up in Kalamazoo. Glad to be here with you guys today.
Alrighty, so we have a lot to get through, especially with our special guest here, Dave. A lot of insight coming from the ownership perspective, so we're going to kind of just hop right into it. And the first thing that I want to kind of chat about, Dave, is kind of how you came to own the club and what your role was before with Kalamazoo FC, if you had a role, and kind of connecting the gap with why you decided to take ownership.
Yeah, no, I've always been involved with the club from the start. I was on the advisory board with Mike Garrett, who's the club founder, and Mike did a great job, did a lot of the heavy lifting. He had the club for the first 3 seasons, and I was not only part of the advisory group, but because I own a lot of apartment complexes, I housed the players. So that was really my function for the first 3 years.
Okay.
And so, I mean, I was used to being around the players. We employed the players. I was pretty impressed with the work ethic of some of these players that Mike was bringing in. I started to tell you the story before we came on air of the kid from Colombia that played for us, and I want to say his name was, I can't remember his last name. His name was Juan, pretty obvious from Colombia, I guess. But we asked him to paint one of our large buildings, 24-unit buildings, and I figured it would keep him busy for like 2 months.
Yeah.
Because it took a crew of 8 to paint it, like 3 weeks to paint it.
Yeah.
After about 3 weeks, I came by and he's like, "Do you want to see the building? You want to see the building?" I'm like, "Well, sure. Where are you at?" And he goes, "I'm done with it." And
Dang.
so the work ethic that some of these kids have is pretty impressive. But Mike Garrett, when he decided that he was going to relocate to Florida, he was looking for a buyer for the team, and I think at the time there was a group that was trying to put funding together to buy the team from Mike, and there was like 8 or 10 guys that were trying to put this together. And one of the things that I noticed right away is I'm like, 8 to 10 guys, that is just going to be a decision-making nightmare. And so
Lots of hands in the cookie.
Yeah, right. I'm like, I own several businesses myself, and it's just I could tell that it's just not going to work long term. And over the course of a few months, I was talking to Mike, and finally I just decided, I need a new challenge. Like I said, I own several businesses. Taking this one from where Kalamazoo FC was at, which was it's really in its infancy and still is in its infancy, and to try to build something, a community team, where, that it supports local charities and donates to local charities, which, hopefully we'll talk about a little bit later. But it's something that I want to give back to the community because, honestly, the community's been great to me. It supported myself, my family, and the businesses that I've opened, and I'm pretty grateful. So most of the charities that we do donate to, they're all local charities, and that was always kind of one of my missions as we took over the team from Mike in late 2018, early 2019. So this is really the first year we're going to have a full run at operations.
Yeah, so you mentioned that you took over the club late 2018. I think it was December when it was officially announced with the club.
Right.
And what were some of the challenges that you experienced? Because that gave you 4 full months before season started for the 2019 season. And so not a whole lot of turnaround. And so what were some of the challenges that you experienced with kind of taking ownership so late before the season started?
But I mean, it's typical of what I do. I have a tendency over the years to put myself in a really tough position.
Yeah.
And
Pressure makes diamonds.
yeah, and I always seem to find a way to work my way out of it.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that I try to tell players that I've coached and folks that that I work with. I'm like, you need to put yourself in these difficult situations with no chance of maybe working your way out, and you will find a way to work it out. And I think the biggest challenge was just because Mike and I are very similar personality types, and I would say probably the easiest way to describe it is one of the main companies that I own is called RSA of Kalamazoo, and most people think that stands for Restoration Specialist on Apartments.
Okay.
But it really stands for Ready, Shoot, Aim. Which
Gotcha.
is kind of how I
Gotcha.
kind of how I operate most
Yeah.
of the time. So Mike operates the same way, and so I'll try to communicate, and he's trying to hand the ball off to me, and it's kind of like I think we did it this way, and we were close to that, and so there was a lot of things that I had to learn from scratch, but Mike was really great in the transition, and still continues to be helpful. I talk to him, at least 2-3 times a month, and he has some pretty good suggestions. And but there were some things that, of course, that in the short term looked like they were going to work that we had to dial back, and then in as far as the long term for the team, we ended up changing quite a few things. And I think that was the biggest challenge, was going from how one person's operating it to how I wanted to essentially operate it.
Speaking on that, so our former coach Brian
Yes.
Clemens, he was around for the 2 seasons before you took over officially as owner, and then was the head coach for the season the first full season that you were owner.
Right.
So having him kind of as that foundation, how do you think that kind of played into the dynamic of the transition period, because you had somebody already in place?
Oh, it was huge. I couldn't have done it without Brian. I mean, he was very instrumental, and Brian, great coach. Obviously we're gonna miss him. And we can talk about. I'm excited about Shane, of course, but Brian did a great job. Very organized, very efficient. Sometimes what was nice about Brian is that he would think outside of the coaching role sometimes and say, hey, have we thought about this? And what made me feel a little bit more confident in taking over from Mike was a lot of times when he would bring up a suggestion, it was already on my mind at the same time. So he was very helpful in that transition. Did a great job with the guys, I thought, and quite frankly, I thought his last year with us was a great season, and we were sad to see him go, but the second I have 3 kids myself. When that second child's coming along, it's a busy time, and
for our listeners, our former head coach Brian Clemens, he is expecting a second child in May, if I'm not.
Yeah, good luck with that, Brian.
So, but yeah, him and his staff did a lot of work for the club. Both Brian, Todd Wells, the assistant coach, and then Jake Puente, the other assistant coach. Todd, thankfully, is still in the Kalamazoo area and heavily involved with youth soccer. Jake kind of found greener pastures, if you want to say it that way, down in Houston.
Yes.
With a great opportunity with the Houston Dynamo Developmental Academy. And he's got a couple high-level boys teams that he's coaching down there, which is a huge opportunity for him. So we were sad to see Jake go so far away. Luckily, we still have Todd and Brian in the area helping out with youth soccer and still obviously supporting the club. But this new coaching staff, though, headed by Shane, a little bit different dynamic with someone who is currently a assistant coach in the college soccer realm. And so what do you see changing kind of this year, or have you already seen change?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I think Shane brings great energy to the program. I mean, he's excited, he's motivated, and he's a competitor. I mean, the one thing sometimes when he and I get together and we start talking, I'm like, man, I don't know who's got to calm who down. Because we're both pretty excitable.
Yeah.
And but he's a competitor. That's what I could say. And I challenged him to put together a squad because, like I said, I thought last year's team was solid, and he's bringing back a lot of those guys. And he's taken his time to get the right people into the right positions, and but I think it's a huge bargain. I think initially I was a little worried because he's the assistant at Western, and Chad Wiseman, the head coach there, has always been really good about giving us 5 quality players. We had 5 quality players from him last year.
Most certainly.
So I was a little worried because obviously with Shane coaching, we can't have any current Western players.
Correct.
But in talking it through, that means it does mean we can have the Western players whose eligibility's done. Obviously the club at Western's pretty strong. So there's still a lot of resources there. And of course, with Shane having Division I contacts, his recruiting tentacles or reach, if you will, I mean, it goes pretty deep, and he's pulling in some names from some pretty big schools from outside the area, because obviously, Kalamazoo, Michigan is a great place in the summertime. So some of these kids are coming up from down south, because obviously it's a new experience, and he's positioning it that way. And I think hopefully as the owner, I'm giving him the tools to attract these players: housing, food stipends, entertainment, keeping these guys busy, internships, working with the clubs, and of course working with the community. I mean, we're planning on making some visits to Bronson's Children's Hospital and Ministries with Community, some other local charities out there, because I think one of the things that's important when these players come in to a town like Kalamazoo, it's a pretty tight community. It's a great soccer community, but I think these guys need to understand that they're very blessed with the abilities that they've been given, and that not everybody's as blessed as they are, and they need to understand how lucky they are in seeing some of these kids that are maybe not so fortunate, and understanding that they have a responsibility to give back because they are so blessed. It's the reason I'm doing this myself.
Yeah, and I think that was definitely a theme that Brian really kind of drove home a lot last year, was the opportunity that the whole team had, no matter what your role was. And I think that that's something where he was a very good coach, but he was also a very good developer of just the individual themselves. And I think that was a huge aspect, especially for my first year part of the club, where, yes, I was here to play soccer, but Brian and his coaching staff, I should say, did a really good job of developing the individual and not just the player. And speaking a little bit of some of the players, so we've announced 5 returners from last season's team, which includes a couple local kids with Evan and Ryan Halloran. And so really excited to have those young Kalamazoo guys back, along with some of our other staples, I guess, in the team, such as Giuseppe and Lost, individuals who took home end-of-season awards for our club last season, and then also including Owen again, who unfortunately was ravaged a little bit by injuries last season, so we didn't quite get to see, I would say, his full potential, but coming back again, I think that he's primed for a huge season for us. But we've also had a couple announcements of new players, kind of from a new caliber, I guess I would say, based on kind of what you mentioned about Shane, with a couple of players from big D1 soccer school history, such as Memphis and NIU. And so I think that this is kind of what the upward trend is looking like, where we've maintained ties with the local kids and given them chances to perform and compete for their own city, while also bringing in those individuals that add a little bit different perspective, different playing style, losses from Denmark. Enrique, who's from NIU, he's from Mexico. And we've got a couple of Owens from Ireland. So having this blend.
Gotta have an Irishman.
Gotta have an Irishman.
Why an Irishman?
Gotta have some fun out there.
Gotta have some fun.
Just for the accent.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. If you're not saying what after what he says at least once, then you're not really understanding.
It's awesome.
Oh, that's for sure.
Yeah. So I think that's been kind of the interesting perspective as a supporter, is kind of seeing the blend of Kalamazoo talent as well as kind of the international talent that we've brought in, which I think really kind of encapsulates the kind of the motto of the club of our town, our team, to where we're bringing in this talent, and it's super beneficial.
Yeah, no, I think having that mix is really important, and Brian did a great job, and I'm sure Shane, from what the interactions that I've seen with Shane, is going to do the same thing. But being able to blend the local guys with the talent that comes from all over the country or countries, as we're talking about, I think is a pretty unique thing to see. But these are young men. They're looking for leadership. I think both Brian and Shane I think Brian brought that to the table. I think Shane brings that to the table. In general, one of the things that I appreciate about the sport of soccer is the fact that it's very much like real life. When people take a look at me in my, they think you can't be a soccer guy just by,
Yeah.
I've never said that
Dave's
ever.
physique is one of a wrestler.
So yeah, so I ended up picking up the game because of my own kids, and enjoyed it. But one of the things that struck me early on, when I was going through some of the licensing courses, is somebody basically asked at one point, hey, how many of you guys played football, American football? And of course, a lot of us raised our hands, and they said, well, football is a coach's game. Coach calls the plays. Coach, calls the strategy. The players have to execute. Soccer is a player's game, and to be able to get these players to work together is really where the magic is. That's why it's called a beautiful game.
Yeah.
And one of the things that struck me about soccer being, a coach's role in soccer is to get the team prepared in practice. Mm-hmm. Once the game starts, coach has very little control, can make some subs. So it's really a player's game. Players make the decisions, players, good or bad. It's much like real life. Mm-hmm. If you make a bad decision, when I coach the real little kids and they make a mistake, they look at me and a little bit terrified because I'm not a pretty man. And
what?
They just, hey.
What?
We didn't say it.
So they look at me like, oh my gosh, he's going to kill me. And I'm like, I just smile at him and I say, I guess you won't do that again. And the kid just smiles and goes back and tries new things. Mm-hmm. And that's really what you want to have happen is they need to try new things and they need to try and fail. Mm-hmm. And, because one of the things that I tell players, I tell my own kids, is I don't care if you try and fail. I care that you failed to try. And, the only thing that that I want you to remember is just, failure is one step. You're just one step closer. When we know the old story, when Thomas Edison was asked, how did you figure out how to make a light bulb? He said, I did, and I figured out 4,000 ways not to make a light bulb. And, it's kind of the same thing with soccer. You try and fail. And as long as those kids are confident that, that they're going to, be able to try and fail, they'll continue to grow.
Yeah.
It's the minute where they're more worried about failing than they are worried about trying. And it's real simple. It's not much different in the business world. Most people will work harder to protect a dollar that they have than to go out and make a new one. It's just human nature. If I try to take a dollar out of your wallet, you'd fight me harder than you would to go out and try to make a new one. And I'll be honest with you, over the years, I've learned it's much easier to go out and make a new one. Mm-hmm. And you just have to have the confidence to be able to go out and do that. And that's what you're trying to do. And even though these players are coming in from college and, they're grown men, mm-hmm. there's still a stage where, the coach, whoever's leading them, whoever's, around them, they need to make sure that, hey, look, you need to go forward and continue to grow. You're not done growing. You're just starting to grow.
Yeah.
This is an old man talking to
Definitely.
a young man.
No. Most of our players coming in are 20, 21. So,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's a prime age to
Yep.
still be making mistakes and learning
It's a
from
cool
them.
philosophy to have to the team, though. Like, I like that, what you're saying, I can't remember what the original question was, though, you were talking about. Like, that's where it got to very, like, old man rant, but I appreciate the heck out of it. And I think a lot of the people that have interacted with you, not only players, but outside of, soccer, would definitely say that about you. So,
Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Sometimes they listen, sometimes they don't. But
that's true. That's true.
That's
That's
a
life.
double-edged sword of this
It
age
is,
group,
yeah.
right?
I mean, I think we did a good job last year. I made sure all the players left with a book, that is, pretty close to my heart, and
Okay.
and it kind of teaches some of those lessons. And I've had players that have read that book and come back to, with questions. I've had players read that book 6-7 years from now, come back and ask me questions about it.
Wow.
And it's, but, I mean, you can only put out the information out there, and hopefully there's a coachable moment at the time or a learning moment at the time. And with some players, it comes sooner than others. And just like with some children, it comes sooner than others.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it works both ways.
Yeah. So kind of rewinding to last season, it was Kalamazoo FC's most successful season
For sure.
competitively. And I want to kind of just talk about how the season went, because I think there were some really high moments and then there were some really frustrating moments with the club. But through that, though, we still were able to post kind of our best record. And also I think it sets us up really well for kind of the season going forward. But kind of going back to last season's results, I mean, we picked up 2 draws against Ann Arbor, who's traditionally a very, very strong side. We were able to pick up a win against Detroit at Detroit City FC. And
Thanks to your last second goal.
anyways,
That's why you put so much emphasis on that. I didn't catch that in the first podcast.
no.
Oh, dang.
I'm old. I almost had a heart attack. I was watching.
Oh, I've seen you on the sideline. Yeah, you nearly jump out of your shoes there.
no, but then also just getting some good results just consistently. Picking up 2 wins against Toledo was definitely huge. And I think that really started, though, at the beginning of the season with the 1-1 draw against Monarchos Morelia.
Right.
And especially playing in front of the amount of fans that came out to that match in Kalamazoo.
Yeah, I didn't know we had that many haters in Kalamazoo. They were
More so Monarchos fans.
right. The Monarchos.
There
fans
might have
were
been hate, but that was an awesome energy. I saw you were
There was.
talking about the international players. That was awesome.
It's one of the
energy.
things that I'm hoping that we can generate here.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
we're talking about working with some of the local pubs to start something called the Kazooligans.
I may have heard of this. Yeah.
Yes, well,
We have some crazy.
we have some crazy ones here in Kalamazoo. This is a family town, but I promise those of you that are out there that, families that are listening, we will segregate these idiots down to one end of the field. You will have peace and be able to watch a great soccer game, and these guys can do their thing somewhere else. So we'll make sure that everybody has a good experience. But I think the energy, like you talked about in the Monarchos game, was great. And we had flashes of it last season, but I think that's one of the goals this season is to put together that fan base, so that because obviously the families have been very supportive, and the soccer community has been very supportive of Kalamazoo FC. You mentioned that we had our best season ever. Our attendance was the best ever as well. And, the changes that we made, bringing in the food trucks, having the halftime entertainment, some of these other
The entertainment for the young kids as well.
Things for the young kids to do, the sponsors tent, some of these changes that we
beer
made.
garden, can't forget that.
Right.
Can't forget
Right.
that.
I'm going to give Mike credit for the beer garden.
Okay.
I don't think Mike would have had the team without the beer garden. So, I mean, that
was a dual entity.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So that was definitely one idea that we kept going forward. But I mean, I think that the changes we made, the community was supportive, but the to be able to get the fan base and that energy level up is really what we're looking for this year for sure.
definitely. And more information will be going out about the Kazooligans and how you can join. So be on the lookout for that through all of our social media platforms and also through this podcast. And yeah, I think last year was just really promising, and it was kind of unfortunate because the team was hit by injuries quite heavily, especially through the middle of the season, where the weekend that we had away to Toledo Villa and home to the La Liga All-Stars, we had 3 people go down with knee injuries just within that weekend alone. And Owen was mentioned earlier. He kind of went down with a knee injury early in the season. And so it was something that was kind of a season of what ifs. Like, we did very well, but it was also a season of what ifs.
Well, I mean, I think if we ended up with 6 ties, I believe, and I think if we had 3 more goals in those games, that would have put us just behind Detroit City. And as far as the standings, we would have made the playoffs. So really, in a way, it was 3 goals short of making the playoffs. You know, if 3 of those 6 ties turned into wins, we pick up 6 more points and makes a big difference. But I think the thing that impressed me more, because you mentioned the injuries, I think the thing that impressed me more about how the team responded to that was that, in years past, not just with us, but other teams in the league, as you got near the end of the season in July, if the team wasn't bound for the playoffs, you started seeing players just disappear and go back home or do whatever. The one thing that I was impressed with, and I think it's reflective of hopefully the ownership, hopefully of the coaching, is that these players all stuck around. We didn't lose anybody because they just got tired of playing and, hey, we weren't making the playoffs or whatever. But so everybody stuck around and right to the end of the season. And that hasn't always happened.
Can I ask real quick, not to interrupt, but do they have that option to just completely leave the team?
Well,
how does that work? I'm just curious.
It's a free country.
Well, I've heard.
So, I mean, technically, no. I mean, they commit to the season, but I mean, the reality of the situation is kids find a reason, or players, I shouldn't say kids, but players find a reason to disappear, if you will.
Wow.
And there's been some teams that, were really, and it hasn't happened here at Kalamazoo FC. It didn't happen to Mike before me, and it didn't happen, obviously, last year. But there's been some teams that, could barely field a team because the players got frustrated. And some of it's because of, where they are in the table. Some of it was simply because there was conflicts with the coaching. But we've been fortunate because, like I said, we had Coach Shabazz from Kalamazoo College was the first 2 seasons, Brian the second 2 seasons, and now we're on to Shane in our 5th season. So we've always had quality coaches here, and the players have had pretty good experiences.
Awesome.
So,
yeah, and I think that's something that was kind of instilled, at least within the year that I've been involved with the club, is, you can only control your attitude and effort. And I think that was something really kind of preached day in, day out throughout the club, and the practices that we had last year is, if you're not quite satisfied with how much you're playing and anything like that, like, all right, what can you do to control it? And so just putting more effort in. And,
yeah. And I was impressed with the professionalism of the players last year, that they didn't we didn't have attitude issues because there was no playing time. I mean, hopefully these guys are at a stage where, that's not, that type of attitude goes away. But, there's team killers out there.
Yeah.
And, you got to avoid those team killers. I mean, it not only does it make it not fun, it's just, I mean, it destroys everything that we're really trying to put together here. And I was clear with Brian on that when we were putting a team together, because honestly, we passed on a couple players that potentially could have been a problem, and Shane's of the same mindset as well. I mean, we want to have a team that represents not only Kalamazoo well, but soccer in general.
Yeah, most certainly. So kind of going forward then to looking at this season coming up is quite a different one with the layout of it, because the NPSL, we lost 4 teams within our division respectively. So we lost Detroit City FC, Michigan Stars, AFC Ann Arbor, and Grand Rapids FC. And 2 of the clubs went to USL League 2, while 2 of those clubs went to the NISA. And the division added 3 other clubs within the forms of Carpathia FC, Muskegon Risers, and then Fort Wayne. And so it's a totally different layout compared to what the club has experienced since its founding, really. And so I think that is definitely something to be visited, and what it's going to look like this season, because kind of the 3 perennial powerhouses of this division are kind of gone, with AFC Ann Arbor and Detroit specifically, considering they totaled, I believe, the last 5 years of division titles. And so the Great Lakes Conference.
Right.
And so I think that, the door's wide open this year. Fort Wayne's already kind of been a promising rival with what they've put together, but I think that this year is set up well to prime us for kind of a postseason run. And so have you kind of, as the owner, kind of been seeing that on the backside of the house with what's been going on at the league meetings? And
yeah, I mean, I think I'm not as worried about the competition. I mean, there's whether we're playing USL 2 or in the NPSL, I mean, we're going to obviously take these teams one at a time. And while I appreciate the energy that obviously Detroit City brought to the table, and the other clubs brought to the table, I think we can generate that same type of competitiveness with the new teams that are here. I mean, I think the shakeup kind of was a little bit surprising to me. I mean, I knew that Detroit City had already committed to go somewhere else, and I wish them the best of luck. There's a lot we can learn from that organization. There's a lot we can leave from that organization. But anyway,
give and take.
Yeah, well, they, like I said, you got to give them the energy's the energy. I appreciate it. But I also think that, like I said, the competition that we have, the opportunity that we have within the NPSL to take it to the next level, I think is something I'm looking forward to. As far as Ann Arbor and Grand Rapids, going to USL 2, it was a little bit surprising. I would have wished that they would have said something to me that they were considering making the move, because it did give us a very solid, base. Obviously Grand Rapids just up the road, Ann Arbor just down the road towards Detroit. Very similar markets.
Yeah.
And but I also think that there can be a great rivalry with Fort Wayne and Muskegon. I'm looking forward to that competition. Because
sounds like it's already been seed sown from what we were talking about last time in the
as
far as the back office, like they're coming for you guys, kind of a thing.
Yeah, I think Fort Wayne too. I'm originally from Indiana, and Fort Wayne's very similar as far as market and size, and kind of colleges within the area. So
and a great soccer community down there too.
Yeah, no, most certainly.
So,
so I think that's going to be kind of a natural rivalry as we move forward. And their ownership group and office staff have seemed to be really cooperative with what's been going on. So
yeah, it's kind of my mentality. I'll slap around whoever you put in front of me.
Dang. Can I ask real quick, what is the criteria for teams if they want to move into a different league, or how does that work out?
It's really kind of the Wild West, in my opinion.
Slapping people around, right?
Yeah, they're. The criteria is really it's kind of a preference. For me personally, the NPSL has always treated me pretty well.
Gotcha.
They've been a professional organization. They've been supportive. They've been very good about letting us as owners individualize what we're trying to do, but yet giving us. So it's a fine mix between giving us support and not being overbearing as a league.
Gotcha.
I would like to tell you that I respond well to overbearing, but that's.
I'm gonna say right now I don't believe that one bit.
It's not typically what I respond to. So
That's why you're at the top of the pyramid for this, right?
Yeah.
so I'm glad that they give us the support that they do, but again, not overbearing. And I think that's the reason that the NPSL, like I said, the NPSL is where we're at, and I'm hoping that we can represent them pretty well. But depending on what the competition is the one thing I will say to all the fans out there is I will seek the toughest competition for this team. I mean, it's just how you grow.
Sure.
You play the toughest competition you can, and you learn from it, and that's what makes you better. Cool. And so we'll see how the league is. If it comes to a point where, because of all the changes you mentioned, Elliot, if it comes to a point where, we don't see that competition, then we'll have to make a change. But from what I can see from the teams that are in it, I think it'll be a competitive season, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, and I think looking forward to, at the regular season schedule, we start off with Columbus and Toledo, both away, but both two teams that last year we were able to come away with, home and away victories with each of those clubs. So right off the bat, kind of starting off well with opportunities to pick up 2 early wins, especially on the road. And then we kind of get into the bulk of the season where we face primarily a lot of the teams that are new to this league. And so I think that that's going to be a really interesting mix of where facing something that we've seen before, I think with Columbus and Toledo, and then kind of really getting into the unknown and those clubs that we have no experience with or background. But I kind of also wanted to mention real quick some of the opportunities coming up as well, because South Bend Lions, a newly formed USL League 2 team, that's a club that we have a friendly scheduled against on May 3rd.
Right.
And so that's a huge opportunity to kind of test out and see what USL League 2 competition looks like compared to what we've got in the form of our team for Kalamazoo FC for this 2020 season. And there's other friendlies that are scheduled or going to be announced soon that I think are huge opportunities to kind of see what the sky's the limit for this club. And
and I think like we talked about, I think whether we're playing a USL 2 club or an NPSL club, I'm not, to be honest with you, from what I'm seeing, the players that at least on paper, I think we'll be competitive no matter who we're playing.
Yeah, most certainly.
Yeah.
So, this has been, I think you bring a really interesting perspective just from the ownership side of it, because it's very, it's kind of one-sided when you're a player or as a supporter and kind of just understanding how the club operates, but knowing everything that kind of goes into the operations of this whole organization. I'm sure it's got to provide some headaches from time to time, but,
provides those challenges that I was looking for. I mean, the last thing I can tell you that I want to be is bored.
Yeah.
On that note, can I ask, I think, to give more insight into kind of as an owner, what it looks like for you? What does a typical day-to-day look like for you in this position?
To be honest with you, where I primarily am focused on right now is, obviously looking for sponsors.
Okay.
Community sponsors. It's one of the things that that is kind of important. So if like the small businesses that are out there, they can get represented as far as the advertising. We work with them, to make sure that they have tickets for their customers. We're in partnership with Soccer Zone so that, when they are sponsors, that not only the advertising at the field, but we're also, they're also be able to advertise within Soccer Zone and, which, those folks put through like 10,000 people a week during the season.
Yeah.
So, we've had some, great indoor facilities here in town between the Kingdom and Soccer Zone. So there's a lot of opportunity there.
That's awesome.
And so I'm focused primarily on the sponsorship side of it. And
sending out the pretty face into the community.
Yeah, yes. I will tell, and I do have to mention, Caleb Bowers and Colin Howard, who
never heard of them.
They do an excellent job.
Amateurs.
They for the listeners that don't know, obviously they're my back office support. Colin Howard's the general manager, and Caleb is director of social media and marketing. And those guys do an excellent job of doing a lot of the day-to-day stuff, with the club. And they're also good liaison between the coaching staff. Shane and Adam. Adam Wright's the assistant coach as well, as we forgot to mention.
True.
So they do a good job of it, because one of the things that I don't want to do as the owner is influence or try to direct the recruiting side of it. That's Shane's bailiwick. I've got enough on my plate just on the operations side. And but again, Caleb and Colin do a great job of keeping this club running on a day-to-day, working with the printers, working with the apparel, working with the uniforms, the houses. They do a lot of that heavy lifting.
And are they housed back in this office right here where we're talking right now?
They do have a home base, just behind
that
behind
is
you,
crazy.
actually.
Okay, I was just curious.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. For all the viewers that can't see us, of course. But.
Briefly, I kind of wanted to mention some of the off-field endeavors that the club's participated in within this off-season, specifically mentioning the Kalamazoo FC Fitness Center, which is in the same building that we are currently recording in, which is Soccer Zone Portage.
Yep.
And so what was kind of the motivation behind this Kalamazoo FC Fitness Center?
Well, one of the things, first of all, fitness is very important to me personally.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's, and
Really, I couldn't tell just looking at you.
so, one of the things that we did last year was put these guys through a fitness test, and on sit-ups and push-ups, and I'm not going to tell you that I was competitive on the sprint side of the thing, but I was,
or the flexibility,
side. But I was pretty competitive on the push-up side of things.
I can imagine.
And so fitness is important, but I think the thing that we're trying to do, because my goals with this club, when I originally purchased the club, I had a 5-year goal to make this club self-sufficient. I'm not, like I said, it's a community club. I'm not really worried about the revenue that comes in from it personally, but I do want it to make sure that it supports itself and it's self-perpetuating every year at the end of 5 years. And so different revenue streams are important. And so revenue streams from the apparel, obviously ticket sales, sponsorships, like I said, merchandise, all these things kind of feed the funding vehicle for the club.
Mm-hmm.
And the fitness center is another one. It serves two purposes. First of all, when you go to a college player and say, look, we have a fitness center, top drawer, with a lot of, the
quality equipment
yeah. That, unfortunately, because I'm old, I'm not used to using. But
still in the learning process for that.
Yeah, I'm pretty clumsy with that stuff.
I thought you just lift and picked it up.
But
the whole machine.
But they're high quality equipment. So when they see that, it's attractive to the players as a draw here, because we're going to use it for our training purposes. But also from a community standpoint, if right now, I mean, we just opened it up really in February, and but if we can get the membership up to 200 to, I think we figured 200 to 300 members in that fitness facility, and hopefully the fans that are listening understand this, that it will support the club. Just the profits from the fitness center
and support healthy lifestyle for yourselves.
Support the club. So I mean, do yourself a favor, and obviously the club a favor. Check out the fitness center. It's like I said, it's top drawer. It's powered by or run by Zoo City Fitness, who's Jason Woods is the trainer there. He's also the trainer for Kalamazoo FC, and he does a good job with all ages. Not only does he work with the local youth as far as developing their strength and fitness and introducing
high school kids,
the high school level kids, but he also does a great job personal training with folks my age. And because obviously
both you and Mike Garrett, the former owner, both worked out with Jason. So
yeah, Jason's been my trainer for many years. So, and I can tell you that he does a great job of mentally understanding the person that he's dealing with. In my case, he has to get me to lift less weights. It's just, you know,
We all experience that problem around the table.
it's just kind of, you know, it's kind of a hard thing to admit, but you got to work on as you get older, you work on your flexibility and your endurance. Nobody needs to lift up cars anymore.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a mindset change for me, but
Yeah.
as you can tell, I'm struggling with it, even telling you.
Yeah, I thought that
what
was
the
a
changes are.
really
Should we cut that
interesting-
part out later?
Yeah. I thought that was a really interesting endeavor that you don't see a lot of clubs participate in trying to set up a fitness center, both for the team, but also for the surrounding community. And so I kind of just think that it speaks to back to the motto of the club of our town, our team, and kind of the collective approach that is.
And are they working out? They can practice in socks when you guys are doing practices either outside or inside, right?
Yeah, we'll
Generally?
probably practice. We have the ability to do this,
Okay.
practice indoors here, also at the Kingdom.
Okay, cool.
Also, we will. We've got the outdoor here. Probably practice at Drake Road as well.
Cool.
But all games are still going to be at Mayor's Riverfront
Okay.
Park, right down there by the.
It's just
Nice
kind of cool to have
central
like a kind of like a campus of sorts where you guys can just call your home and
Yeah, like I said, I mean the ability to not only support the team as far as the workout facilities, but hopefully the fans as well. And it's but it's been an excellent venue so far.
Yeah, definitely. Excellent. Well, I appreciate your time on here, Dave. I think you provide a lot of great insight.
you got one more thing. Sorry, I like to cut
No,
you off.
you're
We
good.
want to say you said it was a new park, right?
Location.
Oh, the location.
fans.
Oh, the locations
Oh, for new farm. Okay.
the where the games are played.
Yeah.
Mayor's Riverfront Park down.
Okay.
It's down by
Yeah.
the Growlers.
Was this
I think.
was
Same
this
place
something we
were
wanted to
last
put
year.
out for any new fans? That was Nick was
Yeah.
saying is also. Sorry,
Yeah, so
guys.
Mayor's Riverfront is where you can catch the club playing.
Yep.
And you can start looking we're going to start putting posters around the local community as well as little pocket schedules. But our schedule is currently out on social media and
And our website.
our website, yes. So you can find us at kalamazoo.fc on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. We're on all 3 social media platforms.
Please don't DM us. Just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
I'm just kidding.
This is where Dave's expertise kind of runs then.
Yes, I'm a technology nightmare.
We're gonna only DM you then, I guess.
I have no idea.
But you can find out information on the club at kalamazooFC.com if you're looking for up-to-date information as well as our social media channels. But yeah, we want to thank Dave Schufelt for coming on and providing his insight as the owner and kind of the top of the pyramid for us. But then, from all of us kind of around the table, that is our episode.
Thanks, everyone.
Ale Kazoo.
Thanks.